21st November 2023. In prosecuting the matter, honorable members, the honorable member queried the constitutionality of various provisions of the bill and highlighted particular concerns with a number of provisions. This included the definition of the term public officer and the singling out of members of parliament and members of county assemblies in the bill, the shift from self-regulation of public bodies to the supervision of all public officers by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, and the obligation on public officers to include their spouses in their wealth declarations. Honorable members, during yesterday's sitting, I did also allow the leader of the majority party, as the sponsor of the bill, and other members to ventilate on the concerns raised by the Honorable Otiende Amollo. In the ensuing debate, it was reported that the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, JLAC, was at an advanced stage of reconsidering the bill. The Vice Chairperson of the committee, the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, did confirm that the committee was seized of the matter and the concerns and had taken them into account in its consideration of the bill. Consequently, I guided the House to await the tabling of an addendum to the report of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee on the bill. The report and the addendum would inform my ruling on the concerns raised by the Honorable Member for Arieda. Honorable members, I note that the chairperson of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee tabled an addendum to their report on the Conflict of Interest Bill 2023 during today's morning sitting. From a perusal of the addendum, it is clear that the committee has addressed itself to the concerns raised by the Honorable Dr. Otiende Amollo and indicated its views on the said concerns. Additionally, arising partly from the concerns of the member, the committee has proposed amendments for consideration by the House. As a member of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, the Honorable Dr. Otiende Amollo, MP, yesterday did confirm having participated in the deliberations of the committee during its reconsideration of the bill. I am therefore satisfied that the tabling of the addendum and the proposal of further amendments by the committee now sufficiently allows the House to consider the bill and the amendments at the Committee of the whole House. As I conclude, honorable members, permit me to reiterate the significance of the Conflict of Interest Bill 2023. As aptly put by the leader of the majority party, the bill seeks to breathe life into the provisions of Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity, with a particular focus on conflict of interest. As the House is aware, the bill seeks to repeal and replace the Public Officer Ethics Act 2003, which has never been fully updated to accord with the Constitution. The importance of the ongoing deliberations on the form and content of the bill cannot be overstated. I thank the Honourable Member for Arieda for raising pertinent issues and which can only assist the House to actualize a critical chapter of the Constitution. I'm satisfied that the bill may proceed for consideration at the Committee of the Whole. The House is accordingly guided. And allow me, honourable members, to thank the Arieda member for a thorough reading, understanding, and appreciation of the bill, and the majority leader for equally rising to the occasion to meet the expectations bestowed on him. I now direct that when you go to committee stage, you proceed to consider all the amendments filed by whichever party so that the bill can move to the next level. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 9, the Gambling Control Bill, National Assembly Bill number 70 of 2023, second reading.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Gambling Control Bill, National Assembly Bill number 70 of 2023, be now read a second time. Honorable Speaker, this bill is related to the lotteries bill that was passed, that went through the second reading this morning, and it helps us to control or regulate the gambling industry. Honorable Speaker, I don't need to speak much on it because a lot has been said and members contributed on matters that even touch on this bill as a contributor to the bill on the lottery bill. Honorable Speaker, once more, let me take this opportunity to thank the members of the Sports Committee because, as I said yesterday, they took a lot of their time, and actually the entire weekend was spent by members of the Sports Committee holed up in Mlolongo to consider this bill. And I have been able to go through their report, Honorable Speaker, as very good recommendations. Of course, with the exception of one or two recommendations in the committee's report that I do not agree with. For instance, Honorable Speaker, on clause 45, the committee proposes to delete the word 15 and substitute with 13. And the import of this amendment, clause 45, was imposing a tax to be known as a gambling tax, which is chargeable on the gross gambling revenue at a rate of 15%, and they propose to reduce it to 13%. There is absolutely no way I would agree to a reduction in tax on gambling. Gambling, like smoking, like the partaking of alcohol, these are considered as sin taxes. And sin taxes, you cannot reduce sin taxes under the pretext that you want to increase government revenue. In any case, that is why we are having a whole bill, a whole new legislation to be able to control this, I don't want to call it a menace, but this habit of gambling, Honorable Speaker. And I really want to persuade the members of the Sports Committee that they cannot be reducing taxation at a time when we are even looking at an opportunity with the bill that we just passed on the lottery bill to be able to tap into the resources that people are putting in gambling through a national lottery. We should be increasing that revenue, gross gambling revenue tax, not reducing it from 15 to 13. I would actually be proposing that we move that gross gambling revenue tax to a level of about 25%, so that we are able to collect more revenue. We are able to, through the lottery, national lottery, to be able to raise much more revenue to go to good causes. And the good causes, as we said, include the rehabilitation of people who are addicted to gambling. And I've said it before, Honorable Speaker, even in our own families, we know people who are addicted to gambling. And gambling is extremely addictive. It's actually more addictive than alcohol and smoking. Not that I have ever smoked, gambled, or I used to drink at some point, and I know how addictive it could be. I have never smoked, but I see how addictive smoking gets. I have said before, Honorable Speaker, I am a teetotaler, and I am a confessed addict of tea. And Honorable Speaker, I cannot leave my house before I take even a sip of tea, and it's Kenyan tea. Honorable Speaker, there are people who are pushing me to say Kericho tea. I said Kenyan tea. And now there's a new saying that there is no conversation is complete, and there is no subject that is so difficult that you cannot settle it over a good cup of Kenyan tea. Therefore, my addiction with tea is a good thing, Honorable Speaker. But I know what addictions do. You are dysfunctional when you have not taken what you usually take. But unlike tea, those who are addicted to gambling comes with a huge cost, not just to them as persons, but also to their families. People are spending money that's supposed to go and settle school fees for their children or for medication to gamble. Honorable Speaker, all these members will tell you that in their backyards, there are people who wake up in the morning, go to their local shopping centers to gamble. And that's all they do a whole day. They will be at the street corners and corners of their shopping centers waiting for their waheshimiwas, their MCAs, their members of parliament, whenever they are passing, to ask for handouts not to go and do anything productive, to go and gamble with the hope that they will make it in life through gambling. Honorable Speaker, we must ensure that we discourage our young people from getting into rather unproductive economic activities like gambling, and encourage them to get into more productive, economically productive activities other than gambling, Honorable Speaker. And you don't do that by lowering tax. When you lower tax, you make it very easy for them to gamble. And I know the other argument, Honorable Speaker, and I have seen it in the presentations by the industry players, that once you raise the taxes here, people will go and start gambling outside the country online. Honorable Speaker, if governments around the world are able to stop people from using WhatsApp, how difficult is it for a government to stop people from gambling online? It is possible, Honorable Speaker, and you don't need to stop them. Tax them even when they gamble online. At the end of the day, there will be a way that you have to remit money, whether it's through PayPal, whether it's through M-Pesa, whichever means that you use to transmit that money to the company you are gambling with, whether it's a company in the UK, whether it's a company in the US, whether it's a company in South Africa. So long as you're able to remit money, government should be able to institute means and mechanisms through which the person who is remitting the money pays a tax even at the point of remitting. And those are some of the new innovations, Honorable Speaker. I was hoping the Sports Committee would be innovative enough. But I do hope, Honorable Speaker, at the right time, because these tax matters, again, are better handled by the Finance Committee, and I hope even as we get to the next finance bill, we should get to a position where we'll be innovative. The Finance Committee and the National Treasury must begin thinking how is it that they can also be able to tap into those who are gambling online, so that they either pay as a gamble and they're able to get part of the money even for those who win. So that, Honorable Speaker, the defeatist argument that if we raise our taxes here, people will go and gamble online in companies outside Kenya, then we can be able to get money even from those that are outside Kenya. Honorable Speaker, I said I don't want to dwell too much on this bill because a lot is what we said yesterday on the lottery bill, but I really want to plead with members to help us pass this bill, because it is dealing with a known national vice in Kenya now. Gambling, Honorable Speaker, and it's not just the young. I have seen around the country very elderly men and women who spend all their time gambling. And I said, Honorable Speaker, yesterday, our radio stations, especially our vernacular stations, have made it now the norm. For every 2 sentences on a vernacular radio station that you listen to, the third sentence is promoting gambling. Honorable Speaker, I do hope that the measures therein in this bill to even control the advertisements of gambling companies will come to fruition when we pass this bill, so that we don't encourage Kenyans to gamble by bombarding them on TV with advertisements on vernacular radio, and that's how we are roping in even the very elderly, because they are made to believe that the easiest way to make $500,000 shillings is to just text a number to some radio station, and those people are collecting billions. Honorable Speaker, I said yesterday, it is now reported that most of our mainstream media stations are making more money from gambling than from their core business of broadcast or even from advertisements for corporates, Honorable Speaker. We must protect our people from being taken advantage of. Unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, it is not you and me who gamble. Although I know in the last parliament, Honorable Speaker, we had one member, without naming names, who was an addict. And he would leave the chamber and run off to some casino somewhere. I have not seen that in this parliament, Honorable Speaker.
You knew one, I knew 3.
I didn't even say from where, Honorable Speaker. I hear somebody saying one from somewhere. You know 3. But unfortunately, it is 3.
I knew 3.
It is 3 in a population probably of 349 members of parliament and about 64 or 67 senators. So in a population of about 500 people, we can count 3 or 4. But if you go to the population outside there in our villages, Honorable Speaker, the most vulnerable people in our society are the ones who are being taken advantage of. It's actually immoral that we are taking money from the poorest of the poor. And because you make it look like you only need 10 shillings, 30 shillings, 50 shillings, it becomes customary that I will try my luck with my 10 shillings today, at lunchtime another 10 shillings, in the evening another 10 shillings, tomorrow I'll up the stakes to 30 shillings, the next day 50 shillings. And you know, they lure them by making them win with their 10 shillings bets. You win 100 shillings, then you spend the 100 shillings betting, hoping that you will now win 1,000 shillings. The day you win 1,000 shillings after spending 3,000 shillings, you win 5,000, you bet that, hoping that you will eventually be the one winning the 500,000 or 1,000,000 shillings that is being promoted on TV. Honorable Speaker, I want to say I particularly support the provisions to also regulate the advertisements of gambling, betting, Honorable Speaker, so that we protect the most vulnerable, not just of our youth, of our elderly, but also of the very poor in our society who are being taken advantage of. And unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, when you look at the people who run these gambling companies, they are extremely filthy rich people, very wealthy people. But they are making more money from the poorest of the poor in our society. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have an obligation and a duty to protect our poor people from being taken advantage of, to ensure that we have good laws, that will protect them, that will not make gambling look like it's a very good thing, Honorable Speaker. And as I said, since it is, in fact, I know in some religions, Honorable Speaker, they consider it to be a sin. And that is why I said, even in tax matters, this should be classified as a sin tax. And therefore, we cannot be encouraging reduction of taxes. And that's why I said I completely disagree. And I know Honorable Amashukuru, the Vice Chair, was here. I had indicated to them I disagree with the proposals in their report to reduce that tax. If anything, today we have, I think, excise duty at 12.5% in the last finance bill, which we passed only in July of this year. We had 5% withholding tax. Therefore, you are proposing not even to move from 15, you are proposing a tax cut of about a gross of 17.5 to 13%. Honorable Speaker, not during such hard economic times when we should be looking for avenues to raise every extra shilling. I will therefore be proposing amendments at the right time, Honorable Speaker, in relation to that clause 45 and clause 46 that touch on levies and taxes, Honorable Speaker. With that, I beg to move and request the Deputy Whip, who is also a member of the committee, who was designated by the Chair and the Vice Chair to second, on behalf of the committee to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Naomi Wako, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the Leader of Majority in moving the Gambling Control Bill 2023, National Assembly Bill number 70 of 2023, as it has just been read. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that gambling is attracting a lot of attention and also has many people who practice in our country. And that is why Gambling Control Bill 2023 is here to seek and replace the outstanding Betting, Lottery, and Gaming Act of 1960. This was done. The Act of 1960 is long time ago, many, many years ago, and I believe not many people who are here today were born by that time. The bill seeks to institute a comprehensive legislative framework for the regulation gambling in Kenya, with specific emphasis on incorporating safe gambling principles within the sector. Additionally, the bill seeks to establish the Gambling Regulatory Authority, which shall bear the responsibility of licensing, regulating the gambling sector. Mr. Speaker, we have had a lot of challenges, just as I said yesterday with the lottery, that even with gambling, many people have ruined their lives simply because of wasting their money, anticipating to be rich the following day. And in a way, it has also made people to be lazy because they believe in waking up every morning, doing this, and getting rich without working very hard. And so this particular gambling control bill will help us to put in place all the measures that are needed, legislative framework that will guide and regulate gambling in Kenya. And again, just to have the gambling principles within all the sectors, and again having gambling regulatory authority, whereby all the matters that concerns gambling will come under them, and the authority will be able to regulate, protected. Again, the bill will be, they expressly provide for the gambling activity that shall be legal in Kenya while prohibiting illegal forms of gambling. Others have taken advantage by doing illegal business here, and so this bill will protect those who have invested and those who have registered and have had their license so that others will not be practicing this illegally. Again, the bill will promote the development of a responsible gambling industry. In the past, some people have been cheating Kenyans, and others have been, conning people in different ways, but this bill will bring that to an end. And again, it will minimize the social harm associated with gambling because Kenyans will be given enough education. The last one, the bill will provide for the establishment of mechanism for the resolution of disputes relating to gambling. Again, many people have had conflict, and in order for us to have peaceful coexistence among our people, and also those who are practicing this to enjoy, then we can only put this into practice. Honorable Speaker, in as much as gambling is considered to be demerit good, its regulation brings forward some advantages to Kenya. One of the main highlights of the bill is that it seeks to provide an avenue for the generation of essential revenue for the government. Clause 45 of the bill provides for the payment of gambling tax. And it is on that we have the 15% rate of the gross gambling revenue, and which funds shall be remitted to the Sports, Arts, Social Development Fund, and the net effect of that will of course be positive because through that revenue, many of the people will be able to transform their lives. The artists, the people who are doing sports, young people who are talented in different ways. And in our country today, we have many people who are also negatively affected by drugs because the drug addiction is quite high due to lack of job in our country. And rehabilitation centers will be built. People will be given a lot of counseling. People will be rehabilitated. And maybe we can even come up with a proposal whereby all the people who are rehabilitated can be given some seed money so that they can go and begin a better life, do small businesses here and there so that they can improve their lives. Because of that, we need to support this bill so that it can have that positive impact on our people. And even for those who will be registering and having their license, it is good for them to give back to the society because this is an area where mainly those people who do not have a lot are engaged in because they believe in creating their wealth through this. Then they invest a lot in this. Let even the people who will be licensed give back to the society by going back to the communities, improving their lives, supporting the poor, supporting the vulnerable people, orphans, and even the institutions that take care of vulnerable children in our midst. Mr. Speaker, another key aspect of the bill is that it provides measures to mitigate the harm associated with gambling. These measures include public sensitization, self-exclusion, enforcement against illegal gambling, promotion of responsible gambling, advertising restriction, and criminalization of gambling by young persons. Further, the bill proposes stricter measures to mitigate issues related to gambling addiction. Mr. Speaker, the Department Committee on Sports and Culture have had enough interaction with stakeholders. Submissions have been done. Different ministries, Ministry of Youth Affairs, Ministry of Sports, and all the others have participated, and they have given their views. Mr. Speaker, the committee has considered this, and I take note that gambling
Give her 1 minute to wind up. Give her 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Speaker, I take note that Gambling Control Bill presents comprehensive and modernized approach to the regulation of gambling in Kenya. It aims to balance the economic benefits of the industry, and with those few remarks, I beg to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Naomi. Honorable members, I now propose the question that the Gambling Control Bill, National Assembly Bill number 70 of 2023, be now read a second time. Carol Omondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'm a member of the committee, so I rise to support the bill. First, by recognizing that it has a very solid policy foundation. I think we have the gambling policy passed in 2022, which, among other things, seeks to balance between the need for a friendly investment climate, but also to establish a very robust regulatory regime for this particular sector by transforming gambling into a social force for social development. And one of the key planks of that policy is how to raise additional revenues, both for national government and the county government. So this particular bill is very timely, and the policy, of 2023 this bill gives life to that particular policy. Mr. Speaker, gambling, like tobacco, alcohol, prostitution, drugs, junk food, and all other demerit goods, tend to present challenges to many governments. Their consumption is generally considered socially unacceptable or undesirable, but at the same time, it is almost impossible to stamp them out completely because of their perceived negative effects to the consumers. Consequently, a balance has to be established as to how to limit their overconsumption or cases of addiction, damage to health, and the various dysfunctional social lives they cause, plus also a lot of external costs to third parties. But they also provide a very rich avenue for new emerging and very transnational crimes like tax evasion, money laundering, and financing of terrorism. In Kenya today, Mr. Speaker, the gross revenue for gambling is in excess of $250 million. And this sector is growing year on at 27 to 30%. You can imagine how much money is circulating in it. This particular bill seeks to establish the Gambling Authority of Kenya, the Gambling Appeals Tribunal, and a gambling tax, which, as you have heard, the majority leader would like to propose a higher regime. From our analysis, gambling tax in the region ranges from 15 to 25%, so we'll debate that at the right time. But also, it seeks to generate revenue for what we call good causes. This is culture, sports, arts, recreation, heritage, protection of vulnerable groups such as PWDs, aged orphans, protection, rehabilitation of problem gamblers, environment, climate change, relief, innovation, education, entrepreneurship, libraries, and supporting emergencies. But we also looked at the policy and incorporated certain safety measures that would help create sanity in this sector. For example, we are proposing restriction on gambling advertisement, both to the news companies, but also to the gambling companies, and also the times and the regime of how gambling advertisement should be handled so as to protect children and other vulnerable groups. We are also, in the bill, proposing regulation of online gambling. This is where people gamble on the internet or through use of remote communication. And this is very addictive, but also presents transnational issues on jurisdiction as also, well, opportunities for money laundering and financing of terrorism. And then we have proposed in the bill very strict deposit limits so that people gamble in small amounts to avoid impulsive gambling. And we have also proposed restriction on use of what are called prediction apps. In fact, we had a small group of very good Kenyans called Gambling Association Society of Kenya, led by a gentleman called Nelson Bwire and his friend, I think, Kipto, who educated us a lot about these prediction apps where they give people a false sense of comfort and you continue gambling very heavily. But I think there are also issues of public awareness, and we have also introduced surety schemes equivalent to what obtains in banking industry, depositors protection, so that those who come to establish gambling businesses here provide security in case they run away, so that those who have won prizes don't lose out. And there are also new provisions that are novel on savings. So if people are gambling, there'll be an amount of money that will be deducted to be saved for their own personal use at a later date. And my Honorable Chair, I would like to note that there's a lot of work that we still need to do in this particular sector. We have very many challenges when it comes to the gambling sector. Amongst them is the fact that, as I've said, issues of tax evasion, money laundering, and financing of terrorism. But there's also the issue, the requirement that if you want to license somebody, you have to vet, do security checks, and undertake heavy due diligence on their backgrounds. And we have had lapses in enforcement mechanisms so as to curb illegal gambling and ensure effectiveness of self-exclusion measures. This is where a person acknowledges he's an addict, or close members of his family will record that he's an addict to gambling, and then we put him on a program to be excluded from going into casinos and other places. And we also require strong enforcement to do public awareness campaigns, promote responsible gambling behaviors, and protection of the young, vulnerable, and other members of society. Consequently, we are appealing to the Ministry of Interior as the ministry that will be responsible for this particular act to take these measures very seriously so as to protect the public. There's still a bit of work that we need to do, which we were not able to achieve, and hopefully the government side will see it fit to find ways of working on these new areas. One is prohibition of credit facilities for gamblers. There are people who go to Fuliza, borrow money, and quickly M-Pesa it to a gambling pay bill. We think there's scope for regulation here so that those dealing with online lending can be restrained from allowing transfers of money from their facilities to well-known gambling pay bills. We also want to impose restrictions on other activities, but also call upon competition for licenses. In other jurisdictions, you don't just walk in, apply, and pay $1 million shillings. Licenses for gambling are actually advertised, and people compete so that the government can raise additional revenue. I think there'll be need to create some further work on that so that licenses are competed for, gambling licenses, just like we did for Safaricom, Airtel, and the rest. And also the prediction apps, gambling prediction apps, I think we need to do some work, additional work, and restrict it. But most importantly, we need to anchor the Sports, Arts, and Social Development Fund, where much of this gambling levy will be going into, in an act of parliament. Presently, I think it is established by a regulation, and that is not very solid enough. I think the governmental side should bring a bill to help us deal with those issues. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Donya Doris, member for Kisii.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to support because, Madam Speaker, I remember I used to bet sometimes back, and when you are waiting to receive the money or not to receive the money, it's sickening. So many people have suffered from stress. Others have borrowed in vain without returning because they feel that if they practice the betting, they will make their lives better, Madam Speaker. When there are regulations in this whole activity, people will tend to do more work that is productive than betting itself. So many people, Madam Speaker, have committed suicide because maybe they've either lost or they've lost the money that they had lended. When you tune on into radio stations, lately there is no much that is discussed, Madam Speaker, apart from the betting. The messaging is very attractive, Madam Speaker, to the people that they believe if they bet with 10 shillings or 5 shillings, they are going to get millions of shillings. They hang on, they even forget to go to their duties because when they look at the salary that they have of maybe they will be getting 30,000 in a month, and when they get the sweet information that when you bet in a day with 10 shillings or even 50 shillings, you are going to get 1 million. You can imagine how unproductive a society can be when people rely on this. On the other side, if these rules are not put, Madam Speaker, we will find out that all our generation, when we had this thing of LGBTQ, people were asking, if I'm a member of that LGBTQ, am I going to be given money? Everything is resonating around money and not how one is becoming productive. So I support this, Madam Speaker. When the regulations are put, we have a more productive ground to play within. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Yatta, Honorable Basil Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm a member of this committee, and I appreciate the majority leader for bringing this bill to the House. As my friends have said, it's important we look at the cons and the pros of this industry. Gambling is very addictive, Madam Speaker. So many people have committed suicides. Young people have not been able to complete school because of gambling, loss of properties for so many, family separations because of gambling, Madam Speaker. Those are some of the cons that this particular industry brings. When I talk about the pros of the industry, gambling does generate employment to so many young people. It does generate revenue for the country. And Madam Speaker, gambling does bring charitable work, particularly when you talk of corporate social responsibilities that is associated with the operators in this particular industry. Madam Speaker, the reason why I support this particular bill, one of it, in addition to the pros that I've already stated, it terms illegal gambling. Madam Speaker, a lot of illegal gambling has been taking place, particularly the offshore gambling, and Kenya as a country has been losing a lot of money. Number two, Madam Speaker, the reason why I'm supporting the bill, it does protect minors from the effect associated with this particular industry, and that is one of the very solid reasons why I'm behind the people supporting the bill. Madam Speaker, I've noted the majority leader is not in the House, but I wanted to mention to him the reason why we wanted to reduce the taxation from 15% to 13%. One of the simple reasons why gamblers are moving to illegal gambling is because when you put multiple taxation, you discourage the operators and you attract, or you make it attractive for people to do online and offshore gambling, which as a result makes this country lose a lot of money, where at the same time we want to generate money. Madam Speaker, we are also recommending for unified tax to be employed in this particular industry. Some countries have done it and have been able to generate more money because the bottom line of regulating these particular industries is to tame illegal gambling, generate more revenue for the country, as well as protect people who could otherwise be harmed by this particular industry. So, Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I join my friends in supporting this particular bill and looking forward to ensure that the industry can be so beneficial to the nation. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you. The Honorable Bishop Jackson Kosgei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the onset, I am a member of the committee that deliberated on the same, and I take the floor to support the bill. This, as has been mentioned, is to balance between the negative and the positive impact of this gaming. I once listened to a friend say, this is one thing you cannot